a Senate confirmation vote is held. However, what I've never seen happen before did happen on Thursday. And no, I'm not talking about a black woman being confirmed to the Supreme Court. What I'm talking about was the very appalling and immature behavior of members of the Republican Party, senators from the Republican Party, who got up in the middle of the standing ovation that Judge Brown Jackson was receiving for her confirmation, and like petulant little spoiled little crybabies, walked out in the middle of this, pouting and showing just their lack of class. And listen, there have been times when there have been Republican nominated, Supreme Court justices nominated by a Republican president just recently. Amy Coney Barrett, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh all were nominated under former President Trump. And after their confirmation hearings, even those Democratic senators who voted against their confirmation, they didn't get up and walk out. They didn't pout and take their binky and their blanket and walk out. You take my ball, I don't need to play with you anymore. No, they stood up and they applauded as well. You know why? Because that is the mature thing to do. That is the democratic, and I don't mean party-wise, I'm talking about democracy. That is the democratic thing to do, and more importantly, it is the right thing to do. So here again, we see the actions of this petulant group of whiny crybabies who could not even congratulate this woman making history. Think about it, folks. This is not just a Supreme Court justice being confirmed. This is historical. And yet they acted hysterical. They threw a little hissy fit and walked out. So shame on you. You know who you all are. I'm not going to call your names because I'm not going to waste my time on a bunch of little babyish actions that you took. But you know what? Grow up. But then again, your leader, he's immature, so I guess you're just acting just like him. I don't know. I digress. The vote that was not surprising but still was disheartening is that the lone black Republican senator, there's only two black senators in the Senate. That is Cory Booker, Democratic senator from New Jersey, and Tim Scott, Republican senator from South Carolina. Republican Senator Tim Scott voted no on the confirmation of Ketanji Brown Jackson. So again, as I said, that vote was not surprising, but yet it was still disheartening. Because I thought about this when I saw this, I thought to myself, how can you, Tim Scott, vote no on a more than qualified black woman and still look yourself in the mirror? You know, you're the one that's always talking about went from the cotton fields to the Congress and giving your sob story about how you were pulled over for driving while black and all of, your whole story. And how could you vote no against this more than qualified black woman? That you may not agree with some of her stands politically, but again, Supreme Court justices are not supposed to make decisions based on their politics. They're supposed to make decisions based on the facts of the case that are before them. And you know that, Timmy. And yet, you voted no. And so why is this? How could you look yourself in the mirror after doing this? So why did you do that? Well, here's a possible reason why, at least I believe. Tim Scott, there's been rumors that he is looking at a presidential run in 2024, that he's looking to be the Republican nominee in 2024 to run against Joe Biden in the presidential election of that year. And so he probably voted no because he wanted to play to that base. He knows better than I do that 40% of the Republican Party are believe the QAnon theories and are support the fact that Joe Biden is not the duly elected president of the United States. They still believe that Donald Trump is still the president of the United States. They should support a large amount of the conspiracy theories that are brought about by the QAnon crowd. Tim Scott knows that. So he's probably figuring, if I'm going to run and make a presidential run in 2024, then despite how qualified this woman is, there's no way that I can vote for her if I want to be the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party. To that, I say to you, Senator Scott, good luck. Good luck if you really think that the Republican Party is going to nominate you as their candidate to attempt to unseat Joe Biden in 2024. Do you really think that's going to happen when you've got the leader of the Republican Party down at Mar-a-Lago still floating the idea that he's going to run? So if he runs in 2024, there is no way on God's green, or if you have a snowball's chance in hell, and even that snowball will have a better chance, that you're going to get the Republican nomination. So if that's the reason that you voted no for her, to have her confirmed, then that vote was wasted, because you're not going to get, and even if Trump doesn't run in 2024, I don't see you being the Republican Party nominee either. Because no matter what you espouse, when I look at certain aspects of that party, like the Proud Boys, like the Three Percenters, like the Oath Keepers, like those that are in the QAnon group, when I look at those people and what they espouse and what they believe, let's just say that you're a little couple shades too dark for them to vote for you. But hey, I don't know everything, so I could be wrong. I could even be wrong about why you voted against her. But it just, like I said, it didn't surprise me, but it disheartened me that you, as a black man, would vote against this more than qualified black woman for this position when you could have made history. But the history books will show, Senator Scott, that you're on the wrong side of history. You're listening to the right side on No Static Radio. We don't bring the static, but we sure enough bring the noise. Our call-in number is 216-939-5087, 216-939-5087. I'm going to get to this. I'm just giving you all of these topics here because I want to get to the main topic, but I've got to give you all of this so we can tie all of this up into a neat bow. On Thursday also, while Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson was being confirmed by the Senate as the next Supreme Court Justice, in the state of Minnesota, in Hennepin County, where Minneapolis is, the prosecutor, Keith Ellison, did not bring charges against the officers who were involved in the no-knock warrant shooting death of 22-year-old Amir Locke. Amir Locke, a St. Paul resident, was killed in February by the Minneapolis Police Department SWAT team during the execution of a no-knock warrant where they were looking for a homicide suspect. They came to the place where Amir Locke was. It was not his residence. He was staying there. And he was sleeping on a couch. He was armed. He had his weapon on the couch with him. By the way, he was legal. He was licensed to carry this weapon. And the police came in, and as they do with no-knock warrants, battered the door down in the middle of the night, came in the door. He thought that this was a home invasion. So he drew his weapon and fired. They fired back and he was killed. Subsequently, the city of Minneapolis, the mayor has now outlawed no knock warrants. My question, folks, is why do we have to have somebody get killed before these crazy no knock warrants are banned? The same thing happened with Marvin Guy, who's in jail right now in Killeen, Texas. We've talked about his story here on the program before, where he was in his home and the Killeen Police Department executed a no knock warrant, came in, busted through his door in the middle of the night, and he opened fire and killed a Killeen Police Department detective. He was charged with capital murder, and now he's awaiting trial some 7.5 years after the fact. And after that incident, the mayor of Killeen, Texas, guess what he did? Yes, you're right. He outlawed no knock warrants. My question is this, folks. Why do we have to have somebody tragically die before we ban these warrants? These are nothing but accidents waiting to happen. There is no need, no cause for this. Listen, if you're worried about people flushing drugs down the toilet or whatever the case may be, there's only so much evidence they can flush anyway if they're storing, if they're dealing that much. And wouldn't you rather lose a few pieces of evidence in a drug case than to lose somebody's life? Which is more important? Losing a few pieces of evidence when there's still going to be plenty of other evidence there in a drug type of situation, or someone losing their life? Amir Locke is dead today. Oh, by the way, he was not the target of the warrant. He had nothing to do with what they were there with the warrant for. He had nothing to do with it all. He was not the target of it, and yet he is dead today because of it. Breonna Taylor, same thing happened with her. They came to the wrong place in her case. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act would address this, but of course, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act never made it to the floor of the Senate because Tim Scott, who we just talked about, and Cory Booker tried to draw up a compromise of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act that would be palatable enough that it would get the 60 votes needed so that it would be filibuster proof. But Tim Scott, the one who talked about going from the cotton field to the Congress, the one who told the sob story about being targeted, driving while black, that Tim Scott, he did not want to get rid of qualified immunity in the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And so because of that, it never saw the light of day. Now, I'll get to what I really want to talk to you about, and that is this. All of this, the Senate confirmation hearings with Judge Brown Jackson, the lack of the passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, the crazy type of legislation that we are seeing here in Ohio, and we've already seen in Texas and Georgia and other states across this country. All of these can be prevented or either enacted if people vote. For example, the Senate is up for grabs this year. The Senate is a 50-50 split right now. This is what could happen. We could get George Floyd. We could get John Lewis, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed. We could get all of this passed. But the reason that we don't get it passed is like my pastor has told this joke before. He said we were in the process of building a new church, and he said he came before the congregation one day. He said, "I've got great news. We have all the money we need to build the new church." Everybody was shouting, "Hallelujah, thank you, Jesus," and all of that, "Hallelujah," et cetera, et cetera. He said, "But the bad news is it's in your pocket." The good news is that we have the power to flip the Senate this November so that the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act can get passed, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act can get passed, the could be passed. Remember that Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. Remember that, folks. We can get all this legislation passed. That's the good news. The bad news is that people aren't voting. So let me just throw this out to you. As I said, there's a 50-50 split right now in the Senate. This is what could happen as early as this November to get all of this legislation passed. In the state of Pennsylvania, Senator Pat Toomey is retiring. He is a Republican senator. Right now, you have two viable Democratic candidates in Malcolm Kenyatta and Connor Lamb. That whoever wins the Democratic primary between those two, if you turn out primarily in the Pittsburgh area and the Philadelphia area, the way you turned out in 2020 during the presidential election that flipped Pennsylvania from Donald Trump in 2016 to Joe Biden in 2020, if you turn out, you can elect either Connor Lamb or Malcolm Kenyatta. That gives 51 seats. But it doesn't stop there. Because not only do you have that in Pennsylvania, but in the state of Wisconsin, you have Mandela Barnes, who's the first black lieutenant governor in the history of the state of Wisconsin. Mandela Barnes is running against one of the worst senators in the Senate, Ron Johnson, who made the statement about January 6th that he was not afraid of the insurrection. Well, he didn't call them insurrectionists. He said he wasn't afraid of those who came to the Capitol on January 6th. He would be more afraid if they were Black Lives Matter protesters. That Ron Johnson. That Ron Johnson who's been tied to QAnon. That Ron Johnson. That Ron Johnson who's a sycophant of Donald Trump. He's one of the worst senators in the Senate. Mandela Barnes is running against him. So those of you that are in Milwaukee and Madison and Racine and other places, Kenosha in Wisconsin, if you turn out in November of this year, like you turned out in November of 2020, when Wisconsin flipped from Donald Trump in 2016 to Joe Biden in 2020, you can elect Mandela Barnes as your senator. There is another seat, but it doesn't stop there. In the state of Louisiana, you have Gary Chambers running in the state of Louisiana. You should look him up. This is a dynamic young man who, as the young folks say, he keeps it real. He keeps it a buck. He is running in Louisiana against John Kennedy, who, by the way, at one time was a Rhodes Scholar. And listen, when he spoke then, well, he still is a Rhodes Scholar. You never lose that. But when he spoke then, he sounds nothing like he does now. He sounds now like Foghorn Leghorn. All right? So I don't know. Well, I do know. I guess he changed his accent so that he could appeal to the voters there in Louisiana. I don't know why he did it. Like I said, he sounds like Foghorn Leghorn when he speaks. Gary Chambers is running against him in November. in Louisiana. By the way, Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania, Ron Johnson in Wisconsin, and John Kennedy in Louisiana. You know what they all did? They all voted against Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, even though she was very highly qualified. So those of you that are in Louisiana that are listening to me right now, you can turn out in November. Those of you that are in New Orleans and Lafayette and Baton Rouge and other places across the state of Louisiana, you can turn out in large enough numbers in November, even if it's inconvenient, even if you have to wait in line, even if they make it difficult for you. You have the power in your hands to flip your state, to get Foghorn Leghorn out, aka John Kennedy, and get Gary Chambers in there, and you can flip Louisiana. Who Gary Chambers, along with Mandela Barnes, along with Malcolm Kenyatta and Connor Lamb, whichever one of those get the Democratic nomination in the state of Pennsylvania, have all come out and said that they will vote for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, that they will vote for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. So that way we will no longer have to be dependent upon Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema anymore. But it doesn't stop there. Because in the state of North Carolina, there is a woman by the name of Sherry Beasley who is running for Senate in the state of North Carolina. Again, those of you that are in Raleigh and Durham and Charlotte and other places in the state of North Carolina, Rocky Mount, Asheville, Greensboro, you can turn out, those of you that are students at HBCU schools there throughout the state of North Carolina, like North Carolina A&T, for example, you can turn out in large enough numbers and vote for Sherry Beasley in November when you can flip the state of North Carolina and make her your senator. Those of you who are in Georgia that are listening to this show, not only can you flip the state house by voting for Stacey Abrams, but you can keep the Senate the way it is because you have a chance to vote to re-elect Senator Raphael Warnock, who's up for election again in November because when he won back in 2020 and then won the runoff election in January of 2021, that was to fill the term of the previous senator who held that seat, whose term is ending this year. You have the chance to go out and vote Raphael Warnock back in to the Senate. Those of you that are here in the state of Ohio, Senator Rob Portman is retiring. You know what Senator Rob Portman did? Senator Rob Portman voted against Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. Senator Rob Portman voted against even having the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill come be heard on the floor of the Senate. Well, thank God he's retiring. So those of you that are in the state of Ohio, what you can do, you can go out in November because it looks like Tim Ryan is going to be the nominee of the Democratic Party in November for the vacant seat of Senator Rob Portman. And I live here in Ohio, so I've seen all the ads of the Republicans that are running to replace Rob Portman in that seat. And each one of those, be it Gibbons or Dolan or Mandel, Timken, Vance, they are all trying to out-Trump the other. I'm pro-God, pro-gun, pro-Trump. I'm going to continue I'm a businessman in the model of Donald Trump, Mike Gibbons says. Oh, really? Then, okay, so that means you're corrupt. So those of you that are in the state of Ohio, you have the opportunity. Those of you that are in Cleveland and Cuyahoga County, where I am, those of you that are in Cincinnati and Hamilton County, those of you that are in Columbus and Franklin County, those of you that are in Dayton and Montgomery County, those of you that are in Youngstown and Mahoning County, those of you that are in Toledo and Lucas County, turn out in large enough numbers to offset those places that are going to vote for whomever the Republican candidate is, regardless. If you come out in large enough numbers, you can flip that seat to Tim Ryan. So now, instead of having 50, you can have Tim Ryan, that's 51. You can have Gary Chambers, that's 52. You could have Sherry Beasley, that's 53. You could have Malcolm Kenyatta or Connor Lamb, that's 54. And you can have Mandela Barnes, that's 55. That pushes you 5 votes away from having enough where you do not have to worry about the filibuster. And it also puts you in the position that you can do carve outs where you don't have to depend on Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema anymore. Because if they vote against a carve out of the carve out of the filibuster for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, like they did before, guess what? Their votes don't even matter because you will still have enough to get it passed. You would still have enough to get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed, which means now you would no longer have no-knock warrants anymore across this country where lives are in danger. You would no longer have qualified immunity anymore in this country, so that when civil suits are brought against police officers, not that police officer pays, but that city, the taxpayers of that municipality pay. People, the power is all in your hands. So instead of sitting around wringing your hands and talking about what this person said they were going to do and they didn't do, and they didn't do this and they didn't do that, trust me, if you sit at home, excuse my grammar, ain't nobody going to do nothing for you. You need to be as politically active and politically savvy as those who are on the right. The white Christian evangelical base comes out in droves. They're going to vote in Ohio, they're going to vote for the Mike Gibbons or the Cyrus Vances, or I'm not Cyrus Vance, I forget his first name, but last name is Vance. They're going to vote for the Jane Timkins. They're going to vote for Josh Mandel, whoever gets it. Same thing in Pennsylvania and Louisiana and North Carolina and Wisconsin. People, the power's in your hands. But if you're sitting around a beauty shop or a beauty salon or the barber shop talking about, I ain't gonna vote because my vote don't mean anything, they ain't gonna do nothing anyway, then guess what? You're going to get just what you deserve. If your vote didn't mean anything, then why do you think they are doing all they can do to suppress your vote and make it more difficult for you to do so? If it didn't mean anything. And oh, by the way, all this started in 2008. The genesis of all of this started in 2008. What happened in 2008, you ask? Do I need to tell you? Look at the presidential election of that year. Then look at 2012. That's when all this nonsense started. So it's up to you. So I showed you what's happening here in Ohio with House Bill 616. I showed you what happened with the Supreme Court confirmation hearings. I showed you what happened with Amir Locke, and you already know about Breonna Taylor. And you should know about Marvin Guy by now because we've talked about him enough. And there's others. Those are just the cases I'm bringing out. You certainly know about Tamir Rice. You certainly know about Michael Brown. You certainly know about George Floyd. So you really want to see uh, police reform in this country? You got the power to do it. And you need to engage your friends and family. Y'all, you all can sit around and talk about the latest things that's on live stream and what's going on Tyler Perry show, Sisters and the Oval and all of that. You all can talk about all of that, but when it comes to talking about organizing and getting out the vote, you seem strangely silent on that. You tell me what's more important: what happens on Sisters or what happens at the ballot box? What's going to happen with the president on the show, The Oval, or what's going to happen as to who's going to represent your state in the Senate of the United States of America that passes legislation that affects you? Ball's in your court. I can lead you to the water, but I cannot make you drink. You're listening to The Right Side on No Static Radio. We don't bring the static, but we sure enough bring the noise. For those of you that are new to this program, we talk sports, politics, and the issues of the day. And so I'm going to go in a different direction right now and get off the heavy stuff that we've been talking about. And I'm going to go to a sports topic. Major League Baseball season opened across this country on Thursday after a delay due to the owners' lockout that lasted almost 100 days. And the season opened on Thursday in ballparks across America. And so, with that in mind, I just want to give my preview of this year's season. Now, as we always say, as we said during the NFL and NCAA college football season, this is done for entertainment purposes only. I do not advise you to go out and bet the house on this, because if you lose the house, don't come to my house looking for residence, because sorry, I can't give it to you. That being said, let's get right into it. So I'm going to look at the National League first, and I'm not going to go in depth by going player by player. I'm just going to tell you the team that I think is going to win and who I think can challenge in that division. So we'll start with the National League East. And I believe I'm picking the Atlanta Braves, the world champion Atlanta Braves, to win the National League East this year. They added former Dodger closer Kenley Jansen to an already championship team. And they also added former Astro right-hand pitcher Colin McHugh to their already very good pitching staff. Now, they did lose Freddie Freeman, who was a standout for the Braves, was a leader in the clubhouse and MVP candidate, and a perennial MVP candidate. But listen, before you shed tears for them, they got Matt Olson from the Oakland A's, and that's a great consolation prize. And matter of fact, it's not a consolation prize at all. There's really no drop off there. So I got the Braves winning the NL East. Now, who can challenge? Well, the NL East is going to be one of the most competitive divisions in baseball this year, as I see it. You've got two other teams there that can really press the Braves, and that's the Mets, the New York Mets, who picked up Max Scherzer in the offseason. As a matter of fact, the only reason why I'm not picking the Mets to win the division is there's a big question mark health-wise. A perennial Cy Young candidate and former Cy Young Award winner, ace of the staff, even with Max Scherzer on the staff, Jacob deGrom. He's going to miss a part of the season with shoulder issues. And if he can bounce back healthy and not miss too much of the season, then I could change that pick and go with the Mets. But right now, it's a question mark regarding his health. The Mets not only, as I said, added Max Scherzer to their team, but they also added former A's standout, an all-star pitcher. The A's were having a fire sale, during this offseason Chris Bassett. They also added to their bullpen Corey Knebel. Oh, no, that's the Phillies. So that's the Mets. The Mets have a potent lineup. Wonder what their shortstop Francisco Lindor is going to do this year. As last year he didn't have such a good season, and unlike when he was here in Cleveland, he found the waters a little rough there in New York when it came to the fan base and also the press. So we'll see what happens there. So if DeGrom can bounce back healthy, then the Mets will supplant the Braves. But right now, I've got to go with the Braves because of DeGrom's health. But that's with an asterisk. The other team in that division that can press the Braves are the Phillies, who added in to their already potent lineup Nick Castellanos and also Kyle Schwarber in free agency. They also added Corey Knebel to their bullpen. And so the Phillies, to the team that has reigning NL MVP Bryce Harper on it, they can also make a strong run at the Braves. That is going to be, along with the American League East, in my opinion, the two most competitive divisions in baseball, especially there at the top. Because either one of those three teams, the Mets, the Phillies, or the Braves, could win it. And right now, I'm going with the Braves. In the National League Central, I'm going with the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals, I believe, will build on the momentum that they had last year as they made a strong run to get to the wild card and went on a 17-game winning streak last year and fought the Dodgers tooth and nail in the wild card game, only to come up short. So I look for them to ride on that momentum. The team that can challenge them in that division is the only other team I think that will be able to challenge, because all the other teams in that division are in rebuild mode, are the Milwaukee Brewers, who won the division last year. Their strength is their pitching with defending Cy Young Award winner Corbin Burns. They also have Mr. Woodruff, who is also a Cy Young candidate. And at the back of the bullpen, of course, they have one of the most dynamic and dynamite closers in all the game, and that's Josh Hader. So with Brandon Woodruff and Corbin Burns in the rotation, starting rotation, and Josh Hader, and that's Hader, not Hater, just in case you all thought I said that, anchoring that bullpen, the Brewers will be the team that challenges St. Louis in the Central. In the NL West, it's the Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers went out and they've got, if you look at their lineup, they have four former MVPs in their lineup, in Mookie Betts, three former MVPs, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Cody Bellinger. And they also have Clayton Kershaw, who's a former MVP as a pitcher and a Cy Young Award winner, and he's not even their ace. Their ace is Walker Buehler, and they also have Julio Urias in that starting rotation, along with Clayton Kershaw, and they'll find a way to use David Price as well. So the Dodgers should win that division. I don't think they'll run away with it, because I think the Padres and the Giants both will contend with them and challenge them, especially the Padres after they added, again, former Oakland A's Sean Manaea to their pitching staff. However, the Padres are going to miss their uber star Fernando Tatis Jr. for about the first 3 months of the season because of wrist surgery. They're waiting to see what's going to happen with the rest of their pitching staff there, but they should really, if they can get Fernando Tatis back in enough time, they should challenge the Dodgers. And they're waiting to see what's going to happen with former Cleveland ball player, Cleveland Indian at the time, Mike Clevenger, who's coming back from Tommy John surgery as well. So the Padres should challenge, and also the Giants. Don't sleep on them. The Giants won the division last year, winning 107 games, and played the Dodgers in a classic NLDS series last year, which really should have been the NLCS. They won all 5 games, and all 5 games were close, came right down to the wire. And of course, the Dodgers prevailed in Game 5, only to go on to lose to the eventual champion Braves in the National League Championship Series. So I see the Dodgers in the West with San Diego and San Francisco challenging them, and the rest of the division, Colorado and Arizona, good luck. Because I don't expect much from those teams at all. They're in rebuild mode as well. In the American League East, I've got the Toronto Blue Jays winning that division. They have a killer lineup, and to that killer lineup, they added here again former A's third baseman Matt Chapman to a lineup that already has Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, George Springer, Gavin Biggio, and Teoscar Hernandez, just to name a few. Now, they did lose last year's AL Cy Young Award winner, Robbie Ray, but they picked up Kevin Gausman, who was a 14-game winner with the Giants last year, and along with last year's acquisition at the trade deadline from the Twins' former ace, Jose Barrios. So their pitching staff will be formidable enough. But if you look at that division, you've got the Blue Jays, you've got the Yankees who are going to challenge, you've got the Red Sox who are going to challenge, and also don't forget the Rays, who, oh, by the way, won 100 games last year. So that division is going to be a dogfight. Those teams are going to beat up on each other, and the poor Baltimore Orioles are going to suffer because they're going to have to play all those teams at least 19 times a year. So the Orioles may lose again anywhere between 110 and 115 games this year, given the division they're in and given the roster that they have. But I do look for the Blue Jays to nudge that out. I do think that while the Rays starting pitcher may be a little better than what the Jays, as the Rays lineup cannot compete with the Blue Jays lineup at all. So I've got the Blue Jays in the East. In the West, because I'm going to do the Central last. In the West, I've got the Seattle Mariners. Yeah, that's right, the Seattle Mariners, who they're going to end the longest playoff drought in North American sports. The Mariners have not been in the playoffs since 1997. So that's 25 years. That's the longest playoff drought in North American sports, longer than any NHL, NFL, or NBA team. And the Mariners added Robbie Ray, the Cy Young Award winner last year, to their rotation. They also added former All-Stars from the Cincinnati Reds and a big deal in the offseason, Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez, to that team. And they have Rookie of the Year candidate Julio Rodriguez on that team. Now, who can challenge? Well, who can challenge, of course, are the Astros, who lost Carlos Correa, which is a big loss, also lost Colin McHugh, also have Lance McCullers Jr. on the DL at the start of the season. So those losses, along with McCullers' injury that's going to keep him on the injured list for the first part of the season, are the reason why I'm giving the nod to the Mariners over the Astros. Also, too, I wonder how soon is Father Time going to start to catch up with Jose Altuve and also former Cleveland Indian Michael Brantley, who are no longer young players anymore. So I'm wondering if they're going to have even a slight fall off this year. Now, Yordan Alvarez, their designated hitter, should really continue to add that pop in that lineup. And for their sake, they hope that Alex Bregman has a bounce back year this year. But they are getting Justin Verlander back. But at his age and coming off of Tommy John surgery, there's a big question mark there with him as well. So again, that's a reason why I'm giving a nod to the Mariners. Also, who could challenge the Mariners are the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim with defending MVP, American League MVP Shohei Ohtani. Also, they have they're hoping that Mike Trout comes back healthy this year, and also Anthony Rendon comes back healthy this year as well. And they added former Met Noah Syndergaard to their pitching rotation. Of course, the problem with Noah Syndergaard has always been in his career health. If he can remain healthy, then that will really propel the Angels. And while they may not win the division, it might propel them enough where they can at least get one of the wild card spots out there. So that's how I see the AL West. I see the Mariners winning it and getting a stiff challenge from both the Angels and the Astros. The Rangers can tear the cover off the ball, especially with their additions this year in free agency of Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, but their pitching is not good, folks. I saw their game last night. To give an example, they had a 7-0 lead last night against the Blue Jays, and the Blue Jays came back and won the game 10-8. So and I realize it's only one game and very small sample size, but the Rangers are going to be in a lot of those types of games this year. They just don't have enough pitching to really contend in that division. For the American League Central, I've got the White Sox. The White Sox are the best team in the division top to bottom. They've got the best lineup. Their pitching